Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Write with Neethus. This is me, Hannah Kishaji. Yes, Neethus is back again with IELTS Writing Live. So, since we came back after a long gap, let me just give you an introduction about what IELTS writing is all about. IELTS writing is different for IELTS academic and general. The difference mainly comes in the task 1. In task 1 academic, it is bar graphs, line graphs, process, maps, tables, pie chart, etc. And whereas in case of task 1 in general, IELTS general, it is letters, formal, semi-formal, informal letters. You might have to write a letter of appreciation, or sometimes you might have to write a complaint letter. You'll have different types of letters. You should finish your task 1 in 20 minutes, and you can use 40 minutes to complete your task 2. So in total you'll have 1 hour to finish the writing task. So they don't ask you to finish your task 1 in 20 minutes and task 2 in 40 minutes, but it is ideal that we do this because 2/3 of your total marks is from task 2 and 1/3 of the total marks is from task 1. So spending too much time on task 1 is such a waste. So it's always better that you spend 2/3 of your time on your task 2, which is 40 minutes. And you need to write a minimum of, and also another reason why you have to spend 20 minutes for task 1 and 40 minutes for task 2 is that for task 1 you need to write only 150 words. That is for describing the bar graph, line graph, pie chart, process diagram, maps. You need to write only 150 words. You need to describe those things with 150 words. But I would say, or it is recommended that you write between 150 to 180 words. And the same applies for letter also. You have to write a minimum of 150 words, and it is recommended that you write between 150 to 180 words. And for task 2, you need to write 250 words. The number of words, you need to write 100 more words in task 2, so for which you need extra time. That's why it is recommended that you use 40 minutes for task 2. So you'll have to write a minimum of 250 words for both the task 2s. I mean task 2 academic and task 2 general. You'll have to use 40 minutes and 250 words. So it is recommended that you write between 250 to 280 words. Okay, so that is about task 2. And the questions in task 2 would be a bit different for task general and academic. For academic, you will get questions from different areas like global warming, education, globalization, and things like that. But for questions in general, it would be mostly everyday kind of topics like should women be allowed to go out for work, or some kind of topics like that, something that is related to everyday life and simpler topics. So that's what an overall idea about writing is all about. And there are certain other criteria that you should keep in your mind while writing answers. One is task response and task achievement. Task achievement for writing task 1 and task response for task 2. It just simply means, are you answering to the question, whether you're answering to the question, whether you answer the question. This is very important when it comes to both in task 1 and task 2, but it is more important in task 2, I would say. Because there is a question type called double question. We'll get into details of those types of essays in the upcoming lives, but now just understand there is a question called double question. 2 question, okay, or it is also called as direct question. So wherein the statement will be given and it would be followed by 2 questions, 2 individual questions. In that question, what you have to do is, in the introduction, you need to address these 2 questions. If you don't fully answer these 2 questions in the introduction, you will lose marks. You will be penalized. In body paragraph 1, you will explain the first question and explanation, example. And in body paragraph 2, you will answer the second question. Again, you will give explanation and example. This is how you do your task 2. So this is why I said task response is very important. If you don't answer both the questions in the introduction, then you failed in task response and you will lose your marks there. And in task 1 academic, you need to be very careful that when you're answering the questions, you describe them in detail, you summarize, and you compare where it is relevant, so you have marks for it. If you don't do that, again, for task response you will lose. Task achievement, for task 1 it is achievement. For task achievement you will lose marks. And when it comes to the task 1 of general, you will have some sub-questions. In the main letter question, you will have sub-questions, and for each of the sub-questions, you have to write answers. And if you miss a single sub-question, you will lose marks for it because you failed in your task achievement. Next one is cohesion and coherence. Cohesion and coherence. So it is about answering in a logical order. You should have paragraphs. You should have an introduction. You should have body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and a conclusion. And also you have to use cohesive devices. Moreover, however, in addition to, in words like that. Okay, so answers should be in logical order and you have to use cohesive devices. Then grammatical range and accuracy. So for most of the time, this is very important, especially in task 1 academic. So you will get, so sometimes you'll be given information in the past, or sometimes you'll be given information in the present, sometimes you'll be even given information in the future. So if mainly for bar graph, line graph, tables, pie charts, for these types of line graph, table, these type of questions, you might get data for the future. So projected figures for the future. And in that case, you will have to use future tense. And when information or data is given about past tense, you have to use past tense. For maps also, sometimes they give you data about past tense and present tense. So you have to use appropriate tenses there. And for process diagram, most of the times you have to use simple present tense. But also make sure you use passive voice. Passive voice is like Rita makes tea, tea is made by Rita. This is active voice and passive voice. So you can use passive voice for your process diagrams. So that's about the tenses. And for the academic essays, task 2, you need to have an academic tone for your writing. Okay? Then coming on to the last assessment criterion, which is vocabulary, lexical resource. You should use accurate and appropriate words. The words that you use there should be accurate, to the point. Okay? And now let me also give you an idea about different types of essays in IELTS. Task 2. First, you have an opinion essay where you'll be given a statement and you will be given a question. The question is like this: to what extent do you agree or disagree? So a statement is given. For example, electric vehicles has reduced environmental pollution. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So when such a question is asked, first you have to decide whether you have to say it, you agree with it or disagree with it. How will you take this decision? And I always tell this to my students: don't say you agree because you think this is how it is. You should say agree, or you should say you disagree, just because you have more points for that. If you have more points for agreeing, then go for it. Go for the opinion that you agree with it. If you have more points, if you disagree, then go for disagreeing with that statement. So this is very important. This is how you choose which side you stay, which side you stand. Okay, and once that is decided, which side you're agreeing with is decided. For let's say here we're agreeing with the statement that electronic vehicles reduce environmental pollution. Then you need to find reasons for that. Reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3 if you have, reason number 4 if you have. So first, in the introduction, you paraphrase the question, and then you write a thesis statement. Thesis statement will say what you will be saying or what you will be doing in that essay. So you will say, I agree more with the statement that, and you will say the points will be explained in detail in the essay. And then you write body paragraph 1, first point for it, explanation, example. Then you write a mini point. If you have one more point, you write that minor point. Then you explain that point as well, and then you conclude it, a mini conclusion. Done. Similarly, body paragraph 2, and then you go for your conclusion paragraph where you conclude the idea. Always remember, what I've seen is like students sometimes by heart templates. That is a big no. Don't by heart templates. By hearted answers will be penalized for sure. So what happens is, but again, if you ask me this question, the words that we use now, the phrases we use now, are actually the copied phrases, are the phrases or the words that we copied from someone. Right? These are the words and phrases we learned from someone. So learning language or language learning is basically about mimicking and copying the words and phrases and sentences that we heard from others. Right? So, but why is IELTS saying, or why are you penalized when you use by-hearted templates? This is because there is a difference when you forcefully by heart something in your write and you naturally learn and write. So what I have seen is my students write the by-hearted templates. So for the introduction, they might have these by-hearted sentences and phrases. They'll write it. When it comes to the body paragraph, the question is different. So they might have learned a question about global warming. The question was about environmental pollution. So they have to write something from their own. So they write on their own, and what happens is there is a mismatch. The level of their introduction and the body paragraphs are extremely different. So let's say the introduction sentences and phrases were band 8, but the ones that they've written is only band 6. So the examiner understands you've by-hearted it. So what you have to do is, don't by heart your trainer's template. I always say this to my students. You have to find a template on your own. But your question would be, how will we find one on our own? We don't know anything, right? It's okay. You have enough resources. You should take a couple of essays. You should read it. You should choose one template from that, and you should fix that as your template. So how do you know which template is your template? That you're able to read it, you're able to store it in your brain, and you're able to reproduce it without much pressure. You're able to understand those words in the first place, you're able to store those words, and you're able to reproduce it. In that case, you will take that as your template, and you will use that as your template for opinion essay. For each essay type, you have to find templates for not just for introduction, for body, and for conclusion. So reading essays is one of the key reading essays is one of those things that you have to do in order to improve your writing. Okay, reading improves writing, listening improves speaking. Okay, that's how it works. These are all interconnected. So when you read more and more essays, just reading it wouldn't do. Read it as if you're auditing it. Go through each and every word, select phrases, sentences, see if there are phrases and sentences that you're able to memorize. You don't have to force yourself. You don't have to by heart it. You don't have to be like, this essay shall discuss both sides, this essay shall discuss both sides. You don't have to learn like that. You read it and it stays in your mind and you're able to reproduce it. That is your template. That's when your essay will sound natural, and that's when you will get the score, the required score, not desired score. And always keep in mind that you're working towards your required score. This is another mistake that I've seen in students. This is another mistake that I've seen students make. When I ask them, what's your score? What's the score that you need? Every time I ask this question to my students, I get an answer like 8, 8.5. I'd love to get 8, 8.5. That is their desired score. But when we actually ask them the required score, the score required for your visa, score required by your institute, university, or the company you're working in, you're planning to work. So then they say, that is 6.57. That's all I need. So you can work for your required score and desired score. When you're working for your desired score, it might take longer time. So if you should always tell your trainer your required score, if that's your priority. If you have so much time, if you're ready to spend time here, you have a lot of time, then you can achieve your desired score. But again, there is a limitation. Basically, they're checking how well you know this language, right? You can never fool them. They've taken hours and days and months and years in framing a test like this and testing you. And you, having prepared for 1 or 2 months, you've just gone through the rules of the test and just going for the test. Do you think you would be able to fool them? No. So most of the time I tell my students this, or this is a fact, okay? If you were a band 5, if your language level is band 5, and if you come here for us for coaching, for 1 month coaching or 2 months coaching, we can make it to band 6 or 6.5 to the max 7. We'll never be able to make it 8. It's not possible. That is the fact. Okay, because we cannot fool the examiner saying this person speaks English at a level band 8 when that student is only band 5. All we can do is we can polish it. We can make necessary changes. We can cut certain areas. We can trim, can polish, we can modify. This is all we can do within a few weeks or months, for that matter. It takes years to learn a language, to master the minute areas of a language, and mastering minute areas, band 8.5, band 8, band 9, they come with the minute elements of the language. If you're good at the minute elements and areas of the language, then you will get band 8.59. So it takes time to work on such things. Language learning, I always say this, language learning is a journey. It's a journey that you have to travel. So if you're traveling, if you're in that journey, if you're in a journey, it's very important that you enjoy each and every part of it. Every milestone has to be celebrated. It doesn't mean you have to cut a cake and give candies to your friends, but it means that you should celebrate each and every winnings. You should appreciate yourself every time you do something better. When I correct papers, writing answer sheets of my students, I write good, very good. And one time one of my managers told me, that's too cringe, you shouldn't be doing it, your students are adults and they would feel it's so cringe. That's what he told me, but none of the students has ever told me it's cringe or told me not to put it. They've all enjoyed it, because you should celebrate your winnings, because language learning is a journey, and when you celebrate each moment that you have learning a language, you will start loving it and you will start learning it more and improving it more. Even today I was explaining my language journey to one of my students, and I'll share it with you someday when we get time. So all that I was trying to say was that this is a journey. If you are a band 6, if you want band 7 or 7.5, you have to, first of all, you have to admit the fact that you're not learning anything. This is a journey. This is a process. You have to trust the process. You have to keep working every day. If you take a break, a single day's break, you will see the difference, especially from writing and all, for writing and reading and speaking for that matter. If you take a single day's break, that would be reflected in your writing or your speaking or your reading the next day. That's not the case with listening. Even if you take a 1 day off, you will still be able to make it up. You'll be able to catch it, but that's not the case with other 3 modules. And especially for writing, you need to practice every day. The improvement is minor. You would only see minor improvements each and every single day, and that accumulates and comes to a bigger improvement. So you need to be patient. You need to be kind to yourself. You will make mistakes. Every time your teacher gives you an answer sheet with a lot of red marks, you have to be kind to yourself. You have to tell yourself, it's okay, it happens, but I will learn from this. I will improve, and next day I will have lesser red marks on my answer sheet. And when you write, I always do that. If my even if it is one good sentence, I write good next to it. If your trainer is not doing it, you have to do it for yourself. I would say, when you're writing something and you wrote it well and your trainer told you it was a good sentence, you should put a good and star for yourself. You should celebrate it. You should appreciate yourself. So that's how you make, and also you should make the process of learning a bit fun somehow. One of those activities that I do in my classes, I take a question, I read that question, and I do a brainstorming session in my class. I ask students to come up with points. I would divide them into 2 groups. One side would go for one group would take one side, and the other group would take other side, and they would bring points. They would argue, and that way they'll cover an area, a topic, maybe globalization, maybe education. They'll cover that topic that day. So it's so much fun because you're having conversations with your friends, you're arguing, you're debating, you're a team. So you have this spirit and you have this real wish to just come up with points. So you come up with points and you want to win that argument. So you work. So you should find fun ways to learn as well. And I would say every day, make sure that you should put conscious efforts in selecting one particular topic and doing it. Okay, so today what I am planning to do is, in this live, I'm going to show you IELTS academic task 1 line chart. So in the previous live we did bar graph. So in this live we'll be doing line graph. So what is a line graph? A data in a table is represented in the form of a line graph. So it is same as table, right? It is the same as bar graph, right? You can express the same data on a bar graph as well. So it is the same thing, right? So there is nothing new that you have to learn. It is the very same thing, the same methods, but we'll look at how we do it. Okay, so I will show the material on the screen. 1 second. I'll show you the material on the screen, the question on the screen. Okay, I hope you're able to see the question. Are you able to see the question? Just let me know in the comments. Okay, so here is the question. The graph below shows the percentage of 18 to 25-year-olds in universities in 4 different countries. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons were relevant. Okay, so this is the question. First step is first you have to read the question and you have to paraphrase it. When you're paraphrasing, if you don't know the synonyms of each and every word in a question, that's totally fine. Just make minor changes. So in this question, what we can do is the graph below. Instead of that, you can say the line graph. Instead of shows, you can write the word illustrates. You should learn few words like that: illustrates, elucidates. You only need to learn 2 or 3 words. So if the question uses illustrates, you can use elucidates. If the question uses elucidates, you can use illustrates. Okay, so learn 2 or 3 words like that. I'll show you a list of words like that in the upcoming lives, but for now just use the word illustrates. The line graph illustrates. The percentage, in the previous live also I told you the synonym of percentage, which is proportion. Okay, proportion of 18. So you can also change the word order. Okay, now I'm doing the paraphrasing by changing the words, not word order, words, using synonyms. Paraphrasing using synonyms. 18 to 25-year-olds in universities in 4 different countries. Like I always say, instead of writing 4 different countries, you can write the names of the countries: Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. Now you're done with your introduction. Now you need your overall paragraph. So for overall paragraph, you need to understand the graph first. Only then you would be able to go for the highest. So in overall paragraph, you write the highest, the lowest, the major trend, etc. So you will write the information on the x-axis, but not the data on the y-axis. You will not give detailed information. You only give the headings. In your overall paragraph, you only give an overall view. You will not explain the data in detail. Okay, so let's read the question. Let's read the graph. How do we read the graph? So in 1961, slightly over 0% of 18 to 25-year-old went to university from which country is that first? Which country is that? Malaysia. In 1961, from Philippines, 5%, slightly over 5% of the people went to universities. And then in the case of Singapore, 15% of the students went to universities in Singapore in 1961. And in Thailand, 25% of the students went to universities in 1961. So now you've read the question. This is how you read the line graph. You have to do only for 1 or 2 years. You have to read like this, read it out loud like this in 1 or 2 years. Once you're done with it, now you have to see which all areas you can summarize, which all areas you can compare. So we need data for our overall. So we need some information for our overall paragraph. In overall paragraph, what are we going to say? All these countries, so look at 1961 and 2011. All these countries had an increasing trend in the percentage of, they all had an increasing trend. So you can say Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, all these countries had an increasing trend with minor fluctuations in between. Okay, or you can say till Malaysia and Singapore had an increasing trend from 1961 till 1971. then it had fluctuations, then it went up and it reached a high in the year 2011. You can say like that. Okay, so we have found the highest and the lowest, then the trends, but the trend is also different. 1961 to 1971 it is different, 1971 to 2001 it is different, 2001 to 2011 it is different. Let's categorize it into 3 groups and describe it. Okay, so I'll read what is written here as well. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It is also given as a note here, so I'll read that as well. Look at the question and then look at the diagram and try to understand what the data means. For example, from this graph you understand that, so how many 18 to 25-year-olds studying in the universities in these countries. To better understand, speak out one line with data. In 1961, 25% of the 18 to 25-year-olds in Thailand were enrolled in universities. Enrolled in universities. This is why I said it's important that you read sample answers, because you will find so many useful words from it. You will learn vocabulary from it. Those are the kind of words that you should learn. Many students go read newspapers. I mean, you will learn words from it, I'm sure about it, but you will not learn the words that's needed for your writing. So if you want to learn words needed for your writing, you need to come use this, read sample answers. So the line graph, if you know, you can say this in some other words, do it. If not, just add something from the diagram and write the introduction. So the line graph illustrates the percentage of 18 to 25-year-olds enrolled in tertiary education programs in 4 different countries from 1961 to 2011. When I explained it, I didn't mention the years. You can mention the years as well. Then overall. Overall, we'll write 2 sentences. Sentence 1, find out the maximum or the highest, which means the line at the top. Okay, from 1961 to 1965, the line on the top is Thailand. From 1965 to 2008, the line on the top is Singapore. After 2008, it is again Thailand. I would say it is not very safe to write like this, because they've said 1961 to 1971. If it is exactly the middle, you can say 1965, but you can say around 1965, around 2008, or after 2008, something like this. Okay, it is clear that for majority of the time period it is Singapore. So understand what the line means. In this case, the line doesn't represent Thailand, but rather proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds from Thailand, Singapore studying at universities. Write this as your overall sentence 1. It can be seen that Singapore had the highest proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds studying at universities for a majority of the given time period. You're writing the highest there. Clear? Then sentence 2 of the overall. Okay. Figure out the trend for all by looking at the initial data and final data. For example, in the initial data, 1961, initial 25, final 40, plus initial 25, final 40 plus for Thailand. For Singapore, it is 15 and 40. Trend is increasing trend. Malaysia, initially it is 2 or slightly over 0, and finally it is 15, again increasing trend. Philippines, it is slightly above 5 in 1961, and I mean, let's call it 7 maybe, and then 20 in 2011, again increasing trend. So we will write there was an increasing in the proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds opting for higher education in all the given countries. So there was an increasing trend. in students enrolled in universities in all the 4 countries. And the other overall sentence that we wrote was, Singapore had the highest percentage of students enrolled in universities for most of the period when compared to other 3 countries. Okay. Now body paragraph 1. So we have to, like I told you, you have to divide it into 3 parts. One is 1961 to 1991, 1991 to 2011. Let's see. So, sentence 4. Body paragraph 1. Data for 1961. Trends from 1961 to 1999. Give initial data for every country. Data for 1961. Try to use contrast words while giving data, while, whereas, or by contrast. In 1961, the proportion of 18 to 25-year-old Thais enrolled in university was 25, and it was followed by Singapore at 15%. In 1961, proportion of 18 to 25-year Thais enrolled. I'll show you that. I'm reading this sentence. A proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds enrolled in university was 25, and it was followed by Singapore at 15%. So look at it. Thailand is okay. In 1961, proportion of 18 to 25-year-old Thais enrolled in universities was 25%, 25, and it was followed by Singapore. It was followed by Singapore at 15%. By contrast, the percentage of 18 to 25-year-old, so use the word contrast, the percentage of 18 to 25-year-olds studying at universities in Philippines and Malaysia was only 7% and 2% respectively. So look at it, whatever they're saying, percentage of 18 to 25-year-olds studying at universities in Philippines and Malaysia was only 7% and 2% respectively. So they're comparing the data. In 1961 for Malaysia and Singapore, Thailand and Singapore, it was 25% and 15%. By contrast, if you are talking about an information right opposite to it, you would use the word by contrast. For the countries, Philippines and Malaysia, it was only 7% and 2% respectively. So this is how you learn to write a sentence for your body paragraph 1 for a line graph. So you have to learn, you have to write. So now what you have to do with at home, you should take your notebook, you should write in 1961 proportion of 18 to 25-year-old Thais enrolled in universities was so and so percentage, 25, and it was followed by Singapore. By contrast, the percentage of Malaysia, 25-year-olds in Malaysia and Philippines was only 7 and 2% respectively. Just take your book and write, and note the words you were able to remember. You read this 3 times and write it on your own and see which all words you were able to remember. You only need to follow those, only need to write those words for your exam. Otherwise your essays would look forced and unnatural. You don't want it. Okay. Then try to explain the trend in detail. Use comparison word while giving trends from 1961 to 1991. There was a slide, so I'm reading this part. From 1961 to 1991, there was a slight decrease in the proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds from Thailand studying at the university. So you're clubbing the information. You're summarizing where relevant. You're summarizing 1961 to 1991. Instead of taking each year and explaining it, you are just taking a group of years, a period, which is 1961 to 1991. What is happening? There was a slight decrease in the proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds from Thailand studying at universities, while the proportion increased slightly to around 15% for both Malaysia and Philippines. Okay, so 1961 to 1991 there was a slight decrease in the proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds from Thailand. You're explaining the trend till 1991, while proportion increased slightly around 15% for both Malaysia and Philippines. In Singapore also the proportion rose, but with fluctuations, and in 1991 about 35% of 18 to 25-year-olds were enrolled in universities. Now body paragraph 2, and then we'll look at the whole answer in detail once again. So in body paragraph 2, in 1 you were explaining the trend from 1961 to 1991. Now you will explain it from 1991 to 2011. Okay, write the trend from it, write the final year data. So in body paragraph 1 you wrote the initial year data, then the trend from 1961 to 1991. So in body paragraph 2 you're going to explain the data from 1991 to 2011 and also give the final year data. So write the trends in from 1991 to 2011. So earlier you wrote the trend from 1961 to 1991, and also you explained 1961 data. So this is where the question has asked you to summarize and make comparisons relevant. You have to summarize and also you have to compare. You have marks for this. Your task achievement marks come from this. Okay, so be very careful about this. So writing the trend, and use comparison words while writing the trends over the last 2 decades from, okay, this is a good way to begin. Over the last 2 decades, 1 decade is 10 years, right? So 1991 to 2001, 1 decade, 2001 to 2011 another decade. So 2 decades. From the past 2 decades, over the last 2 decades, from 1991 to 2011, the proportion of Singaporean, Filipino, this is another way of writing the names of the country. Actually it's not the country, right? It is the 18 to 25-year-old enrolled in the university, so it is the people in the country. So you can write Singaporean, the proportion of Singaporean, Filipino and figure in Malaysia remained unchanged. Okay, what is that? The proportion of Singaporean, Filipino and Thai 18 to 25-year-olds went up, whereas the figure in Malaysia remained unchanged. Then write the final year data. Use comparison words when giving data. In 2011, percentage of 18 to 25-year-olds studying in university stood at 40% in Singapore and Thailand, while that was 40% in Singapore and Thailand, while the figures for Philippines and Thailand was considerably lower, 15% and 10% respectively. So by that we are done explaining the graph. We'll read it once again. We'll read all these sentences together and we'll try to recollect what we learned and the methods in which we can write task 1 answer. This method is applicable for your bar graph, your pie chart, your table. Okay, because it's all the same actually. Okay, so let's look at this. The line graph illustrates the percentage of 18 to 25-year-old enrolled in tertiary education programs in 4 countries from 1961 to 2011. We looked at alternative ways of doing it. that is, instead of the word percentage, we can use proportion. And instead of writing 4 countries, we can write the names of the countries. Overall, it can be seen that Singaporean had the highest proportion, so we are writing the highest and the lowest and the trend. So overall, it can be seen that Singapore had the highest proportion of 18 to 25-year-olds studying at universities for majority of the given time period. Also, there was an increase in the proportion of opting for higher education in all the countries. So you're writing the trend plus highest, trend plus highest in the overall. Okay. In 1961, first giving the data of 1961, the proportion of 18 to 25-year-old Thais enrolled in the university was 25, and it was followed by Singapore. That is the right way to introduce the next year's percentage. It was followed by Singapore at 15%. By contrast, the percentage of studying at universities Philippines and Malaysia was only 7% and 2%. So using the word contrast respectively. From then, now talking about trend. Now you're summarizing the data 1961 to 1991. There was a slight decrease in the proportion trend from Thailand studying at universities, while proportion of increased slightly to around 15% for both Malaysia and Philippines. In Singapore also the proportion rose, but with fluctuations, and in 1991 about 35% of 18 to 25-year-olds were enrolled in universities. So what are they saying? In 1961 they're explaining the whole thing. Okay, when coming to 1961 to 1991, there was a slight decrease in the proportion from Thailand. Studying at the universities, while the proportion there was a slight decrease, while the proportion increased slightly to around 15% for both Malaysia and Philippines. For Malaysia and Philippines, they are giving the percentage of increase, but the decrease they are not giving any percentage. Okay, in 1991 about 35% of 18 to 25-year-olds were enrolled in university. So they're basically giving the data, the trend. Proportion from studying universities increased. They're giving the trend. Okay, increased. Then decreased. Singapore also rose. Okay, fluctuations, and 35% of 18 to 25-year-olds were enrolled in universities. So look at that. They're giving the complete data of 1961. Then 1961 to 1991, they're summarizing the data. They're saying during that period there was a slight decrease in Thailand, there was a slight decrease. Then there was an increase to 15% for Malaysia and Philippines. Then in Singapore also the proportion rose, but with fluctuations. In 1991 about 35% are enrolled. In 1991 35% was enrolled. Okay, then over the last decades from 1991 to 2011, so next body paragraph they're going to summarize 1991 to 2011 and give data for 2011. Okay, over the last decades from 1991 to 2011, the proportion of Singaporean, Filipino, Thai 25-year-olds went up. Okay, the trend went up, whereas the figure in Malaysia remained unchanged. Okay, in 2011 the percentages of studying at university stood at 40% in Singapore and Thailand, while the figures for Philippines and Thailand was considerably lower at 15% and 10% respectively. So using the word while for showing comparison. So this is how you write a line graph. So you summarize, you compare. These are the two things that the question is asking you to do. So you will do that. I hope it's clear to everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment. We'll definitely answer your questions. We're more than happy to answer your questions. We're very glad to answer the questions, and we will see you again on next Friday at 5:30 p.m. with yet another beautiful task. We will learn how to write another writing task together. So till then, good night, take care, and bye.